Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. And today's video will be mainly focusing on Russia, Moscow, and the threats that are coming from Zelensky. So here is the question. He's threatening anyone who is attending the 80th anniversary celebration in Moscow of the victory in World War II. He's saying Moscow might not be safe, etc., etc. And when I was hearing this coming from him, my first thoughts were, is this the case of a patient who has been injected too much or who had too much substance, so the doctors who were in charge of him are losing control? Or was it deliberately programmed into him to say? So this is the question. Is he just acting on his own, or he was directed to say those things? Because I don't think nothing will stop Russia from celebrating the 80th victory and the very special parade in Moscow. I want to say 80th anniversary, sorry guys, of the victory in World War II. I want to say that this just really makes you wonder, is he acting on his own, or he's still being directed? And if so, by who? But let's take a look at the rehearsals taking place in Moscow for the parade that will take place in a few days from now. I know many of you don't like this channel, but once in a while I like to go to Times of India because sometimes they show pretty good footage, like this one, for example. So Moscow is preparing. I'm sure everyone is on a very high alert, and we see how things go. I pray for everyone who is attending to be safe. Here you see, this is actually very close to Kremlin, the shopping center, very beautiful place right here with those lights. I've been in this area many times. Such a lovely place. Expensive one though, but really beautiful area. So if you're interested, I will put the link down below in the description box, and you can see how they are preparing for the parade. I'm sure it will be remarkable to watch. And now let me take you to Maria Zakharova, because she, of course, has responded to what Zelensky, as I call him, the schmuck, was saying. So let's read her response. Here she is. And she says, talks of a truce from the Kiev regime are a mockery of the efforts made by those who truly seek peace. Their real goal is to exploit the West, spread fear, kill, promote neo-Nazi ideology, and operate in a legal vacuum. Classic terrorist behavior. So in a nutshell, classic terrorist behavior. This is the response from the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation. And now I want to play a full-length video. And this is a video with Robert Fico, you know, the Prime Minister of Slovakia, who of course is attending the parade. And as you know, he and many of those who are attending, I believe Viktor Orban as well, I think he is, have been threatened by Kaja Kallas and European Union not to go. Because what, right? So here he is. This will be already translated into English, I think AI. Maybe this is the one of the very few good things about AI, I think. So let's take a listen to Robert Fico, what he's saying to those threats coming from Zelensky and a few other statements that he makes. I think very much on point. Let's take a listen.
Ladies and gentlemen, I must respond to external factors. Firstly, I must object to the statements of Ukrainian President Zelensky, who seem to threaten what might happen during the celebrations of the victory over fascism on May 9th in the Russian Federation. This is unprecedented. To me, it's simply laughable, as if Mr. Zelensky is sending us a message. I'm a small player, it's not about me. And he's sending messages to the Chinese president, to the Brazilian president, to presidents, and heads of state and prime ministers from countries with hundreds of millions of inhabitants, saying, don't go there. Beware, because we, Ukraine, will do something to you. That's not how it's done. I reject such threats in the name of security. I fully respect that the security of the participants is an internal matter of the Russian Federation. Ladies and gentlemen, I must respond in the name of security. I fully respect that the security of the participants is an internal matter of the Russian Federation. But likewise, if Mr. Zelensky believes that his outcries will result in foreign delegations not attending, he is gravely mistaken. However, I had to object to such a manner of expression. I am very sorry that Mr. Zelensky and others are mixing the past with the present. For heaven's sake, it was also Ukrainian soldiers who were dying from 1941 to 45 and were dying en masse in the Second World War. On the contrary, it was necessary to accept the proposal for mediation regarding the celebration of the 80th anniversary, and at the very least, if not, to congratulate each other on the end of the Second World War, then to remain silent. It is a great disrespect if someone in a country that had the greatest contribution to the victory over fascism and suffered the absolutely greatest sacrifices imaginable is sending a message. Well, go ahead and celebrate. We might just throw a little drone or something similar your way. These are unacceptable things for me. I will not mix modern politics with what happened in the years 1941 to 45. Otherwise, I would have to look at the war in Iraq, the war in Afghanistan, and that would prevent them from doing anything at all in international politics. As for my participation, I know there's a huge fuss about it. I would recommend to Mrs. Kalashova, and others to focus on more serious issues than whether I will or will not attend the 80th anniversary celebrations. I'm simply going to the 80th anniversary celebrations, but I will also tell you some amusing stories about how some European Union member countries don't want to allow the government plane to fly over. These are embarrassing matters. It's embarrassing. If you want to fly over the territory of the European Union to somewhere and they tell you, no, you cannot fly over us. Can you imagine what I'm talking about now? Where have we ended up in terms of international relations? I will allow myself to say 2 sentences regarding the internal matter in Ukraine, and that is the agreement on the use of mineral resources, which was officially signed in only one version. But it seems that there are 3 agreements that discuss the implementation of the basic agreement and the conditions. The agreement between the United States and Ukraine is a matter for the Ukrainian leadership. What kind of treaty? The Ukrainian leadership signs or does not sign, it is their natural resources. It's none of our business. I just want to remind you that similar treaties have already been signed with the devil. If Slovakia strategically controlled power plants, gas companies, and everything today, we would live completely differently. So this treaty, which is signed between the United States and Ukraine, is exactly the same kind of treaty that someone makes to achieve a certain goal. And let Mr. Zelensky burst with anger now. I know why he signed it. Mr. Zelensky bought himself a war. Mr. Zelensky is very keen on continuing the war and thinks that with this treaty, if he signed it, it's as if he has subdued the United States in peace efforts which American President Trump made so clear from the first day of his office. It's their decision. But in my opinion, this treaty, ladies and gentlemen, this treaty, as my words often come, means that the war continues and can last for a very, very long time, and may also lead to an escalation of tensions. And therefore, I regret that at least such a small offer, like a ceasefire, from the 8th to, let's say, the 11th of May, on the occasion of the celebrations, which was proposed by the Russian administration, was not respected. I would like to remind you that this is a war in which people are dying, and it is a war that I, unlike your newspaper, unlike many opposition politicians, have been rejecting from the first day. I have been rejecting it from the first day, and from the first day, I have been calling for peace negotiations to begin. Already in April 2022, when this war began, there were peace agreements on the table, which Ukraine, however, did not sign under the pressure of Western allies, because they thought this war would serve to weaken the Russian Federation. I will not get into a dispute with you now, but I would have to ask, did you write about Odessa from May 2nd, 2014, when they let 42 people burn in the trade union's house without those pro-Russian sympathizers? It is important to know what happened in the years 41 to 45. And that is my mental equipment. I simply consider it important, as we will do on the 8th here in Slovakia, because in Pestany, there is an official celebration of the end of the Second World War to express respect and honor to the nation and to the countries that played a decisive role in the defeat of fascism. The war was the subject of my almost 2-hour conversation with President Putin during my visit in December, and it still is. We constantly encourage and speak about it, as we did when we were in the United States. If you take my speech at the CPAC conference, I will always repeat it over and over. This war must end as quickly as possible. So, if the biggest problem again is that I am supposed to go somewhere to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the end of the Second World War, where other world leaders will also be present, and you do not consider the Chinese president, the Brazilian president, and many others as significant representatives of this world, then that is your opinion. I have a different opinion on that. I think we are having a completely unnecessary discussion right now. I am going to commemorate and pay respect and honor to the nation that played a decisive role in defeating Hitler from 1941 to 1945. The nation that suffered the most, suffered the most. I will repeat to you the words of the soldier from the 1st Czechoslovak Army Corps, Sloboda, who said, "I walked hundreds of kilometers on Russian soil and saw Russian children impaled on iron fences and thrown into wells. So I have respect for what happened and for those who paid the price for it."
I'm sure some of you appreciate me playing this video in full length because he speaks for many. He does not only speak for Slovakia, but he speaks for many, many people around the world who still remember, whose grandparents participated in that war, whose parents maybe are still alive and remember the war. Now, I want to take you to Putin. He has visited a museum that is dedicated to the Great Patriotic War, as World War II is called in Russia. And I want to play a part of what he's saying to the young people who gathered there to listen to him, what he's saying about the spirit and the DNA of people who are living now. And it's a very deep, insightful, and important message. So this is the last video that I have for you. Let's take a listen, and then we will end after President Putin.
The events of World War II, the Great Patriotic War, matter to every Russian family. It is precisely because it affected every family. And I am sure that in almost every household, one way or another, they remember their ancestors, their grandmothers, grandfathers, great-grandfathers, through concrete examples. Today, we must talk about this using concrete examples, both through the stories of our soldiers now fighting in the Special Military Operations Zone, defending the fatherland, and through the concrete examples of World War II, the Great Patriotic War. Only then, in this case, will it truly meet with trust and understanding. Only then will it truly touch the heart and soul of every person who encounters this information. Only when it is conveyed from heart to heart, through personal examples, does it inspire trust. That is the first point. And the second, very important thing, when someone tells us, you, me, all the millions of Russian citizens, about their grandfathers or grandmothers, we perceive it as part of ourselves. If my father, if my grandfather, great-grandfather was such a hero, then somewhere in my genes I have this too. It means I also can, I also must. This is an extremely important thing. I believe we must preserve this both on the scale of the entire country and at the level of every family. And then, without any doubt, in any sphere, in any field, we will achieve the results we need. And victory. That is what I wanted to say at the very beginning.
And I think this is such an important message to remind those young people who live there, and it should be in every country that suffered a lot, that if my father, my grandfather, my grandmother was fighting there, and this is in my DNA, this is my bloodline. If they were capable of being courageous and brave, so can I. Because I am part of them and they are part of me. And those are my ancestors. And they give me strength. And I think this is so important to say. So I decided to play that part for you. All the links will be attached down below this video in the description box. Thank you so much for watching and for hitting thumbs up. It's free of charge and it really helps with the YouTube algorithm. Thank you for subscribing, also free of charge, for liking the videos and for leaving the comments. And those of you who choose to donate to my channel, support the channel, you can do it by becoming Patreon supporter, local supporter, or member of my channel. You can follow me on Instagram as well. It's AniaK_44. And with this being said, lots of love. And remember, we are the leading edge and we are saving humanity. And I see you in another video. Bye, everyone.